So by profession, I am an agriculturist. My experience in agriculture was mainly with project management, project writing, and things like that. And that experience, I think, stimulated an invitation to me to manage a project. It was a World Bank project with the Ministry of Health in the country that I live, Guyana, but it was scaled out to the different ministries, including the ministry that dealt with indigenous communities. And my experience with indigenous communities combined with my project management probably resulted in the invitation to manage the HIV project, to go to indigenous communities to help them to understand all there was about HIV, how it affects them as a community, and also their livelihood. So I did that for probably a year and a half. At that time, UNAIDS was very active in the country that I worked, and they introduced SALT and community life competence as a mean of ensuring sustainability of community efforts around addressing the problem of HIV and AIDS in communities. And so the individuals, the focal point from different ministries were invited to be part of the 5 days training. And after the 5 days training, we were invited to, if you were interested, to deepen our understanding about SALT by registering to the blended learning program, and which I found was very interesting. The 5 days was very stimulating, and I thought that I could use this with the indigenous communities. But the time we were introduced to SALT was at the time the project was almost at its end, the World Bank project. Having learned about SALT, I thought that this could benefit the communities in a better way for them to take ownership and be more responsible. Because the one-day exercise in the villages, in my mind, created a vacuum. Because all we did was to go to the communities. The facilitators of the one-day program spoke about HIV, how it affected them, and we left them. And there was no way of helping them to understand how it get their feedback on how it affected them and what they could do. So I thought to myself, and I discussed this with the team of facilitators, because I was only responsible for the logistics and management. But having going out with them over a period of months, I discussed with them. I told them that I really am not satisfied with how this project is being rolled out in the communities. But having been introduced to SALT and community life competence, I saw the opportunity of going back. So I wrote a project to go back to some of those same communities. And it created a different type of response from them. Because we were able to talk a little bit about HIV, but we got their thinking and feeling and response on how they can, as a community, begin to address the problem of HIV, the threat of HIV in their communities and how it affected them. But very early, they indicated that, Autry, we appreciate you coming and helping us to talk about HIV and how we are responding. But you know what? HIV is not isolated, and we cannot address HIV without addressing other issues that affect us. So they realized the benefit of what we were engaging in with SALT, that it addresses the problems and issues that they have in a more holistic way. And so they thought that, hey, we could use this not only to address HIV, but address other issues that affect us in our villages in a more holistic way. So they saw the spin-off effect of SALT. And in fact, after that, we also used it to address uh, issue related to human trafficking because they thought that that was a serious threat to them. So while they develop a response and being responsible to addressing HIV, there were other serious threats like drug in the communities. I mentioned human trafficking, alcoholism, right? Domestic violence, and other things that they thought that if they come together, and as they were discussing HIV, they began to discuss other issues. So they began to benefit from apply applying SALT with them. And so they began to take ownership. They began to, to do things that could help them to prevent the threat of these other social concerns. And that was more real to me. And what SALT and community life competence contributed to communities using their strength to address common concerns. And after then, I use it in other aspects like dealing with small, having the background of agriculture. I use it in communities to help them to develop vision about what they would like for specific commodities uh, like you might call what we know as manioc, we know as cassava, um, honey, honey producers, and other agricultural communities. We brought them together and they envision what they would like for themselves as a farming community and how they could achieve. We help them to discuss how can they achieve those vision, which we call practices, and that helped them to organize themselves better and to make linkages with respect to marketing, extension, and other aspects that could help them to be stronger commodity producers. Uh, so I see salt as a mean that contribute to people's way of living and help them to be more conscious of who they are, identifying who they are on a human level, and how they as a community bond together to understand who they are, the strengths that they have, and how they could use their strengths to overcome common challenges as they pursue common dreams together. So I eventually began to use this in every sphere of life. An opportunity that I am engaged in, the first thing that comes to me naturally is how can salt be used in any opportunity that I have? And is that that love, that um, natural way of thinking about salt um, helped me to and stimulated, I think, members of the constellation to appreciate what I was doing, and that drew us closer because we began to see each other as supporting our individual efforts to to make SALT and community competence um, a means of engaging communities to help them to understand who they are first and how they can use these tools to help them to achieve common dreams. So the difference that SALT does or stimulate is 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 there somehow we can do it differently or even better? And what are those things? And the conversation would continue in that light, with who we are, what are our strengths, What can we do even better? And I help them to understand as well that SALT stimulate even greater bonding between members of a community. Because when they, if we are to go through the different steps of community life competence process, each step has a different way or mean of strengthening bonds between members of a community. If you know the steps, the who are we stimulate a level of understanding each other on a human level and that we have strength. But when we meet to the step of like self-assessment, the conversation there deepens the bonding that leads to a level of trust because we have candid conversation, as I always put it, and that when we agree on a level, it must be by consensus. It must be inclusive. Everyone who participates in the conversation at that step of self-assessment should be heard and should make a contribution so that when they leave that room or that space, no one should say that it was their decision, that type of thing, or it wasn't part of my decision, right? Because we don't want that. What we want is a community effort, and that is where, in my opinion, that people begin to take ownership because of the candid conversation and they agreeing that this is what level we're at and why, and they all contribute to the description of it. That is meaningful for me in the sense that that's where the trust um, develop, and it becomes easier for them to move forward and to develop the the action plan of what can we now do to move from one level to the next level.